program called Tinkercad, and that was really cool. So whatever school that was, your model looked awesome, and I believe it was the Junior Mesa, it was the Junior Mesa submission, and that was really cool. The building that you guys had a 3D model of your building in Tinkercad. And so move forward with that. That was awesome. And then other teams that were looking for some software, that is something that I would recommend. It's free. I think if you just Google it, you should be able to find it. And so, yeah, that's kind of the biggest things. And then usually kind of what I tell students, no matter what the project is don't kind of get bogged down on one thing. A lot of times we'll see groups that focus on one small component and they get stuck. And so with this project, there's so many different things that you guys need to touch on, that if there's one particular thing that you're really stressing about or really worried about, maybe just hold off, go to a different portion of your project and come back to that at a later time to make sure that you do hit all the points that you need to hit for this project, because there is, a handful of things that you should be touching on in your presentation. And so those are kind of some of the main things that I saw in the submissions that we got. I think a lot of teams are just getting going, but it seemed like you all had a really great start. So.
All right, excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Cassandra?
And I can help too, like Bill mentioned, I'm a civil engineer. I don't do buildings specifically, but I work with kind of designing around buildings. So if you have any kind of specific questions on something like that, I may be able to try and help you out, or at least point you in the right direction on what you should be searching for that question.
In the specs, it mentions something about like an architectural like sketch, which is like kind of like, or like on a grid paper. And then after that, it mentions like Tinkercad and different like softwares like Minecraft and all that stuff. So what's it called? What I was asking was, so I have a sketch, but it's not exactly like to scale. It was just like kind of me brainstorming like different ideas. And like Minecraft and Tinkercad, which are the ones that I'm using, like kind of like developing at the same time. Minecraft has it where each block is about a meter. And I wanted to know if that was like eligible to be like some sort of like to scale to like make it, or does it have to be like on a grid paper?
That is a spec question. So that's something, but I will say this. The American Society of Civil Engineers who designed this problem do want to be able to like literally walk into your building. So doing it in Minecraft is actually a really good idea. Doing it in Tinkercad is also a really good idea. What they want to be able to say is, we can either see a drawing of your building, like the Tinkercad one, because I also saw that and I thought that was really cool what they did. And then be able to say, all right, I know that one inch equals 1 foot or 1 meter, or whatever that is. Or to be able to say, oh, look, I see what your building looks like because you designed it in Minecraft. So if you actually did like a screencast of, look, we're walking into my building and here's all this cool stuff that I've got in there. Two of the judges were very excited about the idea of being able to go into your building in Minecraft. It is not a requirement, because we know that not everyone has access to Minecraft, nor do they want to play it. So, be creative in how you do your presentation of that, and either of those will count for that requirement. But be creative in your presentation, because creativity is important.
And I think too, like Bill was saying, that is something that they're excited about seeing. And like you said, one of the blocks in Minecraft, I think you said was like a meter or 3 feet or something like that. And so you can use that as your scale. So if you think, a room is 10 feet tall, then adjust accordingly with the amount of blocks that you're using in Minecraft so that it's a realistic size, would just be what you would need to pay attention to. So that scale is correct when you're doing your full 40 stories.
And thank you, Vicente from Rutgers, for saying Steve is 6 feet and 2 blocks of Minecraft is 6 feet high. Any other questions?
Sorry if I was a bit late. So what are we doing right now?
This is the feedback on the submissions for the Support the Sky challenge.
Okay. Want to make sure.
All right. Any other questions?
Bill, sorry to be like the one talking a lot, but I have another one. How are we supposed to incorporate like the Google map, like in our presentation and stuff like that?
That's a really good question. I'm glad that you asked it because I was actually doing a little bit of work on that the other day to try to talk about that. So you can go to Google Maps or Google Earth and say I want to put my skyscraper in Manhattan, Kansas, which is an actual town. It's where Kansas State University is. So I know it. It's kind of a ridiculous place. You look at the Google map and say, all right, where's a blank space, a space of open land that could be developed. So, all right, I'm going to put it, say, next to Kansas State University. There's my picture where you're saying it, and then, is it in the middle of a neighborhood of like 1 and 2 story houses? Well, you're probably not going to want to put a skyscraper there. Or is it in the middle of we'll call it downtown. It's not a very big town, where there's taller buildings, the university's right in that area. There's large hotels, things like that. So is it appropriate for the space that we're in? And so you take a picture of that, and then using that the LEED LED certification spaces, are you able to meet some of those needs of, are we close to transportation? Some of the different things that are in that rubric that help you determine where to put that building. Another good example of this is if anybody's ever been to Kansas City, there's some huge spaces that are undeveloped there, where they're just empty lots. And so, could I put it in there? And then how am I going to make my building meet that certification spaces? So you get to pick where you want to put it. And one of the things I would suggest is kind of take a look around and say, all right, where do I want to put it? Because that's also going to determine, how much wind is going to be applied to your building. What types of maybe building codes you need to follow, things like that. So that where you want to put it, location is important. One of the things I always say about building things is location, location, location. So here's a space of where am I going to build it? So definitely take a look at that using the Google Maps. If you want to build in Tucson, build in Tucson. If you decide you want to build on top of Mount Everest, that's kind of crazy, but you could potentially do that. You just wouldn't be LED certified. So, but that actually, Alex, is a really good question. It was something I was going to talk about. So thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes. So does the area need to be zoned for a skyscraper wherever we're going to put it in? Like, does the city need to be zoned for a skyscraper?
It doesn't necessarily, we didn't specify that it needs to be zoned for skyscraper, but you definitely I don't want to have a skyscraper in the middle of my neighborhood where I live because there's a bunch of houses. So as you're thinking about that, make that choice of, is it appropriate to put here?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then I saw Tracy had her hand up, and then we'll go to Nicholas. So Tracy, what's your question?
I just would love a lot more specifics about what you guys saw and what was sent to you guys that you really liked and what was really kind of missing and needed more. Because make sure you read the specs and don't get bogged down in one thing and be creative. Not a lot.
Okay. And we do have feedback for every individual team that I will be sending out on Monday. So, the Valencia middle school team will be getting their specific feedback for what they turned in. So there is that. Cassandra, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, because I do have some things that I saw as I was looking through everybody, all the different judges' feedback as well too, that were themes.
You can go ahead, Bill.
Okay. So one thing is that the judges love the really sort of innovative ideas that people put together. And that innovation is really that idea of, how is this building going to be a little bit different? So how is that, that innovation, the ideas for I can't speak, sustainability, were really creative in what they were doing. They really like some of the ideas for water capture, for solar power, and things like that. And it was kind of hard to give a lot more sort of specific feedback about these things, because I'd say probably half of the projects were just in that beginning phase, which, I mean, we have COVID, we totally understand. So there is that. One thing that came up was, think about wind, because wind does make a difference. The wind at your height level is different from the wind that's maybe 100 feet up. And since you're building a skyscraper, you're definitely going to be at least 100 feet up. So think about the wind as you're making your design decisions. And then I can't read my own writing. And look for other buildings that are currently being built, and some of the or that are currently built. A couple of examples that were given were the Taipei 101 tower, and then Burj Khalifa. And I can put those into the chat for everyone as well too. And that was really the general things that I saw in the judges' feedback. And then you will get more specific feedback about your projects through email on Monday. So look for my email. All right. And then we'll go to Nicholas from Ross Scrooge.
Okay, so I have a question. How are we supposed to put it in Google Maps?
Right. So looking at the Google Maps will tell you where you're going to put it. So when you look through the specs, you'll see something called building footprint, where they talk about this is the land that you're going to take up. So look at Google Map and say, all right, I found an empty lot, or I found a place that's run down, that looks like it could be redeveloped, and then take a picture of that and say, we're going to put it at, and I'm in Tucson, the corner of 6th Avenue and Park Avenue, 6th Street and Park Avenue, because this is what we found from looking at Google Maps. So that gives you a location for where you're going to put it, so that the judges can say, okay, you've looked at the space, you have a plan for where that area is going to be, and then that could also determine what your building looks like. If you choose a really narrow strip of land, you're going to have a really narrow building. If you have found a wide open space, then you're going to have sort of a wider building, like what you would see at, say, like the U of A, or Nicholas, I see you're at Ross Scrooge. So like, if you're going to build it over Tucson High, that's a huge amount of space that you could build that on. So that's where that looking at Google Maps comes in. It's deciding what is that building footprint within the city that you're building in.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And Cassandra, if I mess up any of these civil engineering terms, please tell me.
No, you're all good.
Any other questions? Any comments?
Bill, do you have any tips on the notebook? Like anything that you saw that we should probably be adding, or anything major?
I didn't see very many notebooks, so I don't have a good thing to tell you, other than I know on the specs and resources page at azmesa.arizona.edu, which everybody should go to, the first thing on that is the notebook rubric. So that rubric is standard across all of our competitions. So use that for what should go into your notebook.
And to expand on that a little bit too, I think there were a couple of teams that provided like links to their Google Drive documents, but because it was the settings they had for that document, it wasn't shareable or viewable by others who didn't have approved access to that document. So there was a couple that provided links, but that we actually couldn't get into because we needed access. So when you go to submit your final document, make sure that if you do something like that, your settings are right, or it's a final PDF or something that can be opened by the judges.
Any other questions?
Yes. So would a bigger building be an advantage compared to like teams that are doing smaller buildings?
No. It needs to fit the description of a skyscraper, but it really is about your design. So if you said, we're going to build a longer building that only goes 40 stories, rather than we're going to build a narrow building that rises up like the Empire State Building and has 60, 70 stories, then you need to be able to say, we designed this because of insert your reasons, or we chose these design elements for these reasons. So make sure that you're able to justify what you did and why you decided to do that. Any other questions?
Yes. So does our skyscraper necessarily have to be in the United States, or can it be anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Bill, how would we go about calculating cost on something that's like barely being developed? Like say like the things that like solar panels and different things like that. Cause I found like a special one that's like barely being developed, and I don't know how to basically calculate and put that into my cost.
Was there a projected cost for that?
I found the article and it mentioned that it was being used like in Taiwan and different places in Asia. So I could probably track down how much they're selling it for, but it's like in development basically. Like there's only prototypes out in the world, which is kind of cool. But by the time I'm building a building, probably when I'm like late 20s, who knows? It'll be out then.
Okay. That's a really good question. Cassandra, how would you do that as a professional?
Typically, I mean, when it comes to kind of specialized equipment like that, we actually would just reach out to the manufacturer or the company that's producing the product. So like I do kind of like water and sewer design. So if we have any sort of like water treatment technology or something like that we are putting somewhere, we actually just reach out to that company to have them to not only get their specifications on the product so we can make sure that we're designing it correctly, but sometimes we'll go ahead and have them give us costs so that we can know and kind of pass that information along. But yeah, I think kind of what you said, the best bet would be just to try and find if there is a cost that you can find for it. If not, maybe find a similar product that may not be the same, even if it's a little bit of an older product, and then maybe just apply some sort of multiplying factor to that, because it is a newer piece of technology. It's going to be more expensive. So if you can find something that may be not as recent and not as new, just apply some sort of factor so you can get in the right ballpark of what you think the cost should be.
Yeah. And Alex, it is an estimated cost, because I mean, being able to say, hey, I need 8,000 girders. How much is that going to cost? You're making an estimate for that. So make an estimated cost, but once again, justify, I found this, which is similar, cost this. I apply a factor of 3 to it. I applied 3 because insert your justification for that, and then put in your cost. Any other questions?
Do we have to include parking structure like or parking lot costs or design into our building, or are we just designing the building?
Well, parking is an important consideration. So say for instance, you're building in downtown Tucson, there's parking structures around. So you can say our building is 100 feet from a parking garage. If it's, if you decided that you're going to build out in that stretch of land between Casa Grande and Yuma, where there's no parking, then you need to have parking in there. So that is a consideration for what you're doing when you pick your location. Any other questions? Any comments? Any good jokes that are school appropriate?
What do you call bugs that live on the moon?
I don't
What do
know.
they call bugs?
Bugs that live on the moon.
I have no
Their
idea.
sounds. Their silence. The silence makes it funnier.
Lunar tanks.
Whenever there's a joke in their silence, I think that's the part when everybody starts laughing because the whole room's silent because of that joke.
Well, here, I'll throw a skyscraper joke and a math joke at you. What do you call a toilet being used on the 50th floor of a building? Hypotenuse. Sorry, I taught math for a long time. I know a lot of math jokes. You don't want me to do math jokes. Trust me, you don't want me to do math jokes.
I think the chemistry ones are worse, like my professor that drew the Esther bunny.
Yeah, the chemistry ones are kind of bad. I had a chemistry teacher that told me that a lot.
I have one that's it's about dentists. What do dentists call their x-rays call their x-rays? What do dentists call their x-rays?
I don't know.
Their X's?
No. Toothpicks.
Nice.
I don't get it.
Picks like pictures is a toothpick, which is also something used to clean your teeth.
Sometimes I understand the joke, but I just don't see it funny.
Fair enough. And Phoenix Christian, good one. I know you guys are meeting as a group, so it's hard to send it in there.
I have a question. So
Yes.
when we're designing our skyscraper, do we have to, for example, if businesses move in and they want to use a room, do we have to provide the materials that they're going to use it, or are they going to bring like their own stuff for that?
So what is the use of your building going to be? Are you building an office building, or are you building like in New York City, there are apartment complexes that are, go up 30 floors. So what is the use for that? And then, and Cassandra, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I think this is right. It's all right. You're renting office space in my building. You need to, whoever's renting that space needs to take care of that. We're going to put in, like a maker space or a car lot or whatever that is.
Yeah,
Okay,
so you're
so I was
basically just
thinking-
providing the walls, the room.
Okay, that's all we're doing?
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. And then in some cases, like depending on how you set up your building, is somebody renting, the entire floor versus, just a section of the building on that floor. Could also depend on how many like walls you have per floor, what the layout of that particular floor is, depending on, again, the use, like Bill was saying.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments, or jokes?
Bill, what so like presentation
I know
wise,
chicken.
there's like different ways that I could go about it. So like you mentioned that in Minecraft, like you could do like basically like a tour almost.
Mhm.
But would it be better like if you just have like those like basic like presentations where it's like just a slide and stuff like that? Or do you need both?
That's a really good question, which is what we're going to be talking about in the next session in room 4 about the specifications. So make sure you join us for that session. And so as always, make sure you read the rules, make sure you read the rubric. But we are going to be talking about that in the next session because this competition has some different things that they're kind of looking for in it.
I know a joke.
All right, what do you have?
No
Sergio?
joke. What did a Mexican chicken say to the other Mexican chicken?
Okay.
No. Vete pa' acá.
Nice.
I have a joke also. It's why should you never trust stairs?
I know this one.
They're always up to something.
I got a joke.
All right, last joke.
What did the baby corn say to the mom corn? Where's popcorn?
Nice. All right, so we are at 11:30, which means that we are done with this session. At 11:45 in room 4 is going to be the spec questions, and Alex, I'll make sure to answer that question that you asked in there. So please take 10 minutes, stand up, walk around, get something to drink, do whatever it is you need to do, and then we will see you again in 15 minutes.